So for those of you who I've never met or I'm sorry, are new to Next Grade Step, I just want to give a quick introduction. So my name is Beth Hendler-Grun. I am the CEO and founder of Next Grade Step. And our sole focus is to help college students and recent grads land the internship and first job after college. And as you are aware, we've been doing this for 10 years. And how this came to be, just a little bit about that, is that I was working in consulting with Fortune 50 CEOs and their executive teams. And we'd always have the conversation about hiring. And they'd say, I'd love to hire someone out of college, but I don't have the time to hold their hand. I don't have the time to give them the attention they need. I really want them to come to us more prepared. And likewise, I became of the age where lots of my friends would tell me, I don't get it. My kid went to a great school. They have great grades. They have an internship and they cannot get a job. And what I saw was there was this real disconnect. And my goal was to provide a solution, a really simple, structured approach that enabled young adults to understand how to differentiate themselves, how to add value, how to have a strategy in this process. Same things that I was teaching executives. And I started in my basement with a couple of my friends' kids, and they were said, you know what, I'm not getting this at school, and this is really helping me. And this is kind of how we got started. So really kind of from the grassroots of how this happened. I am also the Amazon #1 best-selling author of the book called The Next Grade Step, The Parent's Guide to Launching Your New Grad into a Career. And I'm actually #1 on Amazon in 4 categories, and Haley's going to post that link. I am really proud of it. I actually wrote it. We launched it back in 2022. And the goal of that book was to really provide a resource to families because so many people were saying, I don't understand what's happening, or I thought I was giving good advice, but maybe as a parent, I haven't looked for a job in 20 years. So even though it says it's a guide for parents, it's really a guide for the family. The first part talks about the challenges of what's happening from the parent, the child, and the employer perspective. And then the second part gives our step-by-step approach. So if you want to work through this with a young adult in your life, you absolutely that's the goal of that. So I'm really proud of that. And lastly, I am the mom of 2 boys, one who is a college senior graduating this year and one who is a 3rd-year grad student. So I am in this with you. I totally get it. I understand the stress, the anxiety. I understand when your kids don't listen to you. So I really can relate on all aspects. And very grateful to my kids and my husband who kind of put up with this as we've gone through it together as a family, and something that I do for everyone. So that's enough about me. Just wanted to make sure anyone who is new understood what we are all about. So let's kind of talk about what's happened a little bit over the last 10 years. And the constant theme that keeps coming up over and over again that I always see is many students would say, I don't understand, or I thought I was doing all the right things, or I thought, this would be easier, but yet somehow they're struggling. And then I have parents who say, you know what, I went on the campus tour 4 years ago and the university told me or promised me that they would handle this, or that my child would have a great job because of the credentials of the school or the quality of the education or the major that they were studying. And somehow that's not always working out the way everyone thought. And lastly, as I mentioned earlier, employers, they're frustrated too. They're like, I need talent. I can't necessarily babysit. I really want someone to come to us who can add value, who has the skills that we need and can help solve our problems. So there's been this consistent disconnect over this period of time. And we've definitely seen some changes over the years, but this kind of remains true, whether it was 2015 or 2025. And just a quick recap of what was happening in the market. I gave you the agenda a little bit of what we're doing. I apologize. We're going to talk. I already introduced myself. We're going to talk about tips, and then I'm going to leave time for questions. But what I've been seeing in the market very quickly, 2015, 2016, there was this slow optimism. There was more hiring in tech. There was more hiring in healthcare. It was becoming more in style to have an internship, and people seeing how that could leverage and give you really an advantage when trying to get that full-time job. In the 2017 to 2019 phase, we saw the hiring surge. We saw where STEM was the go-to major, and that if you had that major, you were going to get a great job. We also started to see the beginning of the gig economy, like Uber and DoorDash and all of these, online or kind of instant type services. And we also had some benefits from some tax cuts as well. Then we had the pandemic, which really kind of put us in a way that no one was really prepared for. And it really came into, more remote work, more e-commerce. You think about, what was happening with Amazon and Netflix and all of these services. Things were virtual, understanding how to interview virtual, do work virtually and remote. And then as we're coming out of that in 2022, 23, we had some more inflation, some rate hikes, some more jobs that are niche like logistics, or there was more competitive. So you really had to start differentiating. And as we ended last year and heading into this year, there was some steady growth. Obviously, we have new policies, new economic information, but the growth of AI and how are we adapting to that? So the only thing that I can tell you for sure over time is that there will always be change. And the ability to prepare and understand how one navigates this job market, regardless of whether it's a recession or it's super hot, you need to kind of have some of these foundational things that I'm going to talk about this evening. And even I just wanted to show one report. Now, this came out in the late November, December, that right now the prediction is that there are going to be more opportunities for the class of 2025. I hope that it continues to be that way, but we've had kind of the dip the last couple of years, and now we're hoping to start seeing that upswing. So again, I don't have a magic 8-ball or crystal ball, but I know that certain behaviors and ways to approach the market have been shown to prove themselves out over and over again. And that is our goal for this evening, to really talk about how to support you no matter what's happening in the market. Okay, hold on. Let's take a look at tip number 1, right? So tip number 1 is start with your skills. And this whole idea that you have to know yourself first. It's funny. I decided whether should I make this number 1 or number 10, because honestly, it's probably the most important piece of this whole process. If you learn anything tonight, I'm going to give you some really golden nuggets initiative to start, is that so often students and grads will send out resumes or send out applications. But before all that happens, if you don't have clarity about your skills and what you're really good at and the value that you can bring to an employer, it's going to make it very difficult to stand out. It's going to make it difficult to get noticed. And you really want to make sure that you have this figured out. And we talk about it in a sense of what he called the core skills. What are your top 3 skills that you know that you have? And it's not saying I'm hardworking or I'm responsible. That's something that is an attribute. A skill is something like, I know how to research. I know how to solve problems. I know how to design something, code. So it's really those hard skills, and not just saying you have the skill, but do you have a story to back it up? It can't be because my friends told me I'm good at problem solving. It's, I need an example from class, from a volunteer, from a club, from a part-time job. How did you demonstrate that skill? And when you figure out your skill, so let's say, for example, you did research, and maybe your example is you did research for a professor by using certain databases, or maybe you were able to use a different, certain format. Maybe you interviewed people to gather information. When you can prove that you have a skill and how you demonstrated it, once you figure that out, the rest of the job search gets easy. It's easy because you know how to talk about yourself. You know what you're going to focus on in your letters, in your interviews, what your resume should reflect. So we spend a lot on skills. I have a lot of videos on it. You can go see everything I talk about it. We have all kinds of blogs, and it's in my book. But starting with figuring out who you are first is the most important piece before starting the job search. And once you get that, the rest goes smooth. And we'll talk more about this as it goes on. All right, tip number 2. And I share with so many grads, I say, this is the secret weapon. The secret weapon in the job search is about networking. The challenge for so many young adults is that it's not taught at school. It's not fully understood what a network is and how to network. And that's the piece that sometimes can be the most uncomfortable, which is why we find so many grads who would rather apply to 100 or 1,000 jobs instead of talk to someone about a job. And what I always remind our students and everyone is that it doesn't matter how amazing your resume is or how many keywords you have or whether you're trying to beat the AI, the tracking system, is that people hire people, not a computer or tracking system or ATS. And it's people who will hire you into a job. And the more that you can leverage the network around you. Now, a lot of students and grads say, well, I don't have a network or I don't know anybody. If you were in college or you went to college, you have a built-in network. People who are in your dorm, who you went to class with, who are in your clubs, your professors, people that you never met who are alumni. They love to talk to fellow alum. And it's understanding how to leverage that. And that's something that we teach. It's not just saying, reaching out to someone and say, do you have a job? Or can you give me an internship? It's learning how to build a relationship and that you're curious and asking about how did you get there? Tell me your path. Also, then being able to share your skills, demonstrating some of the value and examples that you have, and then asking if either that person can refer you or maybe you can stay in touch. Maybe they can be a mentor. Maybe they can give you guidance. Because remember, I'll say as a hiring manager myself for many years and now, hiring is a drag. And I don't want to sort through 100 or 1,000 resumes. I want to hire somebody that I know and trust. And then someone came to me, asked thoughtful questions. We had a conversation where I learned their skills and shared their value. I'm like, maybe I should just give them a call before I even post the job. And I think the more that young adults can understand the importance and the value of creating that network and then actually communicating live with that network, that's what will help you go much further. As I say to our students, I don't want you to measure the number of applications. I want you to measure the number of live, real people conversations that you have. And that is what will push you further into the job search process. And I know it's uncomfortable because you don't have a lot of practice in it, especially since the pandemic, but we can help you with it. There's ways to practice it. Just put yourself out there. You'd be surprised how friendly people are that want to help. Okay. And I just want to let you know, I just want to let Haley know I am seeing all the chats. So, and Haley, I'm seeing everything you're posting. So thank you. Everything looks good. Everything that you're posting is great. Okay. So let's talk about tip number 3, the 10 and 10 rule. You know, what's interesting is that very often students and grads will say to us, well, I go on the job boards, I'll go on Indeed, Handshake, Glassdoor, you name it, LinkedIn, and I look for jobs, but I'm just trying to figure out like which one would be good for me, or I'm just trying to line it up where I'll just find something that works. And I want you to think a little differently. I want you to think that you actually get to choose the job that you want. Now, many would say, well, how is that possible? How do I get to choose? When you figure out your skills, you then can think about, well, what are the kinds of roles and companies that need my skills? And we always ask our students to start off with the 10 and 10 rule. The 10 and 10 rule is this. I want you to pick 10 companies that are of interest to you. Now, how do you figure these out? You need to read, you need to maybe look at trade journals or online magazines that teach you about the industry that you're in. You have to do some research. Just like when you're in school, you still have to do research for the job search. But look at what's out there. Look what's happening in the industry. Go to Google and type in, top 10 PR companies in the news, top 10 engineering firms in the news. Just try to get, or in a certain area, in certain New York City or Dallas. Figure out who these companies are that you want to learn more about. Then I love LinkedIn. I don't work for them. But it's a great tool. Everyone's on there. Start with your alumni. Pick 10 people who are in entry-level roles who are doing the job that's interesting to you and that are spread out amongst these companies. And this is your beginning strategy for how you start networking, by the way. You start building this list. And maybe you reach out to someone who graduated 3 years ago, and maybe they're an associate PR person at a company, and you reach and say out and say, I'm very interested in what you did. Like you, I had the same major, like to connect. And then they connect, say, I'd like to speak with you for 15 minutes to understand your role and I learn more about your job. And this is how it starts to happen, where you get to start choosing the roles that you're interested in. And by the way, many, many roles are never posted online. So this is the whole hidden job market, where you start to uncover jobs that are never going to hit Indeed or LinkedIn or Glassdoor. By having these conversations and you choosing the companies and the people who are doing those roles, you start to realize, wow, there's opportunities here, and it's not getting posted anywhere. So the more you can be strategic about picking companies and the kinds of roles that you want, the better chance you have of potentially getting it, because people now understand how your skills align to it. Okay, I know, again, these things seem uncomfortable, some potentially a little scary, but you got to push yourself out of your comfort zone, because when you do it, you tend to have more success. Okay. Tip number 4 happened this morning. We had a group coaching class, and one of the students, we do a mock interview at the very end of our group coaching. And one of the questions we ask are, pretend to be an employer and said, why should we hire you? And the student answered, well, I really like the way you're describing the job description. I think it would be really good for me in terms of like what I know how to do. I think the company culture looks good. It's also like close to where I live, so the commute would work out well. And that's why I think you should hire me. And I'm not saying that those things aren't valuable or important, but here's the hard truth. Employers don't care about it being that great for you. This is the harsh truth. They need it to be great for them. They need to hit revenue targets or save expenses or increase customer satisfaction. And they're looking for people who have skills that can help the company achieve their goals and their targets. So the more that you focus on putting yourself in the employer's shoes, about saying, you know what, I have strong research skills, problem solving, I'm highly analytical, and I'm confident that I could help you achieve your goals of, X and Y. And because of that, that's why you should hire me. So the more that you can think about what's important to the employer, that's what gets their attention of wanting to talk to you and potentially hire you, more than you saying, well, this would be great for me. Of course, I do want it to be great for you, but I need to give you some tough love and tell you the truth that they really want it to be great for them. And the more they see candidates that show that they're already thinking ahead about how they could help this organization, those are the ones that tend to have the best success in getting that job offer. All right. Okay. Number 5. So we're going to do number 5, and then I will take we're going to take some questions because I see some things coming into the Q&A. So here's another a phrase that we share with our students over the years, and that we've learned, and we share this with them, kind of in the same thing about what employers are thinking. People don't read and they don't listen. So if you're explaining your skills or your talents, you need to get to the point and to be on task. And there's a reason why we started off with having 3 core skills, because there's a power in remembering 3. There's some psychological piece to it. But if you're going into an interview, you should know, what are your 3 skills? What are the 3 reasons why you want to work for this company? What are the 3 reasons why they should hire you? Having a concise answer with 3, maybe even less if it's appropriate, is what keeps people on task. You don't want someone to zone out in the interview. Very often there is this feeling of like, someone will say, tell me about yourself. And the feeling is like, well, let me just tell them everything and see if something sticks. Let me just throw all that spaghetti on the wall. The problem with that is that they stop listening. You're not answering the question that they asked. You're also not getting a chance for them to ask you more questions. And you're not being able to relay what they want to hear. They have a limited amount of time. You need to get to the point and be concise. And for people, I'll say, who are my age, who grew up in the 70s, there is a song called 3 is the magic number. And I really still believe it is in terms of being concise and how you talk about yourself, being articulate, and getting to the point. Okay. So with that, let's take a moment. I want to look at the questions that we have. Haley, everything's coming through in the chat. I have a couple questions here, and then I have a couple in the Q&A. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see what we got here. So let me come over here. Okay. Oh, this is so nice. Well, I'm going to, Gary, hopefully I can share this. Just a comment. He was on our last office hours that we did earlier, and he said that the daughter had pursued a position that encompassed 4 interviews and 2 assignments, and she didn't get the job. And she said, using the advice from my book, by the way, I didn't ask him to do this, I'm just reading this, that she kept in touch with the company's recruiter and in mid-February heard back because another position in the same group opened up. 4 more interviews and another writing assignment later, she was offered a position, even negotiated up her starting salary. I have recommended your book to multiple people. And by the way, I have learned that we have a mutual friend. Thank you so much. That is so lovely to share that. And unpaid, unsolicited, I did not plan, Gary, to say that, but that is really kind of you. And I'm so more thrilled. I'm so thrilled for your daughter that she followed it. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, about being persistent, because I'll tell you, one phone call, one message, one email will not move the needle. You really need to be persistent in this process. And especially now, it is competitive. And if you really want to stand out, I hate to say this, you don't always have to be the most qualified. I mean, yes, you need to be qualified, but sometimes the people who put themselves in front of the employer and show that they add value and how they keep up with it is something that we have seen over and over again that people be successful with. And I think the other really important lesson from this message is that a no is not always a no. And I have so many situations where a candidate gets rejected, and we are big on making sure that you go back and you ask, if you get to that final interview and they put you through all those rounds, you really want to understand what else you need to do. So you have to go back and be humble and say, I really want to improve. Can you share with me some feedback, what I need to do to better position myself for the role? And if I do this, or maybe I didn't mention I have these skills. And I can't tell you the amount of times an employer will come back and potentially bring other candidates in again and offer them the job. And the other reason that no is not always a no is that very often ATS tracking systems automatically reject, and no real person has ever seen it. So that's why it's also, again, important to be networking directly when you are reaching out to people. But so those are great. Thank you so much for that story. Let me come over to the chat, because I have a couple questions that are over here. So please, if you have your questions, you can put them in the chat. I'm sorry, in the Q&A, which makes it easier, but I will take a look at the chat as well. So let's so hi, we have a student here. So I'm graduating in Tulsa, but I'm moving back to South Florida. Concerned about your chances of finding a job against competition due to your lack of network contacts back home and connections here in Tulsa, that they aren't as much use as you hoped. Your internship connections were laid off last year, and all of this is concerning. Do you have any advice on how I can still build a network? Absolutely. So, this is a really good question. We get this a lot, where you have a student who's from one city and you go to school in another city. And sometimes the companies that come to recruit at the school are not really where you want to end up. Maybe you want to go back to your hometown. And so sometimes it can feel a little frustrating or discouraging, like, well, I really want to be in this example, I want to go back to Tulsa, or I want to go back to South Florida in this example. And how do I make that happen? So again, this is being resourceful. You need to look at your network. I love starting with LinkedIn. I do many videos on this. You can look on my social channels, but they're on your own LinkedIn profile, on your own university icon, click it. And on there, it'll bring up the school's LinkedIn page. And on there are multiple tabs. You want to click the tab that says alumni. And there's a whole filter. You can filter by if someone had the same major as you, if someone, where city they're working in, what companies they work for, how many years ago they graduated, because I don't necessarily need you talking to the CEO. You can talk to someone who graduated like 3 to 5 years ago. It's an amazing filter. It's free. You don't need premium. Everyone has access to it. And I want you to look for people who maybe went to your school who are based in South Florida, or maybe companies that are based in this area. So don't feel discouraged. You just have to do more to initiate it on your own. And you may not be able to rely on the university to help you the way you thought. So it's not a lost cause. You're like many, many students. I have students who live in New York and they go to school in LA and they want to come back to New York. It happens all over the country. You have to really work the process, and you cannot necessarily rely on a university that they're going to solve this for you. They're going to say, well, our companies are from the local, Tulsa area. And if you want to go back to South Florida, you might need to do some research, which you can do. You have all the resources in front of you. You can connect with us. You can get the book. You can network with people who went to the same school as you. That's really my best recommendation. You have a network. You just haven't leveraged it in a way that you can. But I love LinkedIn and I love the alumni tool. So definitely make sure you are using that as well. All right, let me answer another question, and then I want to come back to the tips. So, hey, Bobby, thanks for asking your question. How can I motivate my son who graduated last year? Oh, look, I'm not a therapist. I'm just a parent too, like everyone else. Here's what I've learned. I'll say as an expert in this, and also as a parent, that I'll speak to parents. I speak for myself. Our timeline is not always your kid's timeline. And just because we know from life experience that you need to kind of start doing this, you need to get working on it early. If your kid is not motivated, or they feel like, you know what, I want to try it on my own, or I want to do it my own way, sometimes we have to let them, I don't want to quote that Mel Robbins book, but we have to just let them go through the process. Sometimes we need to let them experience failure or difficulty or a little bit of pain to see that maybe their way wasn't the easy way. And it's so hard as a parent to stand by and watch this, because we feel like, well, you're wasting time and potentially wasting money that we're helping to contribute to college. And, they might be living on our payroll for longer. I don't have a miracle answer for this, but I will also say one thing. And I will say that we've had a much bigger issue. All right, so let me come back to the question that I had. Oh, you can't see the things before. She's going to repost everything. Got it. So let me just come back to the question, how do you motivate? And the other question about motivation, and I'm not going to, sometimes there could be a mental health issue. I've had parents and families say to me, my kid's a procrastinator. My kid doesn't care. My kid says they're going to do something and they don't do it. And all I will say to you is that even more since the pandemic, like, we also have a mental health crisis. And our young adults, because they lost so much time in such critical development time in their life, that we are seeing a lot of anxiety and depression. And it sometimes is masked as procrastination or laziness. And we even brought in a psychologist on staff this year to help us better support students, or better vet, to make sure we're asking the right questions and giving the right support. And I'm going to cover that in my next coming tips about, there's some resources that Haley's going to post about if you feel that there's a mental health issue. We really want you to access those resources because it's important. It's an issue that's going on for everybody. And I don't want us to underestimate how our kids potentially could be impacted. And maybe that could sometimes be an issue for motivation. So just really, really important for us to keep that in mind. Okay. So let me just come back. I'll answer one more question. Okay. Hey, Catherine, as a parent, I would like to reach out to my network for my senior college student. What is the best way to do this and the appropriate way to introduce and then step away? I love this question. I get this a lot. So I'll have parents say to me in different stages of when their kids are working with us, or even in introductory discovery calls, to say, I have a network and I want to introduce them to it. And here's what we've learned, and here's our guidance. I am all for networking. I am all for leveraging every possible resource that you can, with an exception, when your kid is ready. And what I've seen is the biggest mistake that parents make is that they have a really high level connection, an executive, a VP, someone who could really make a decision for your kid. And you introduce them way too soon. They are not prepared. They take it too casually. They don't know what to say. They think they're going to get the job just because it's a family friend or mom and dad just make the introduction and they're not ready. And then they blow it. And then they blow the connection. So my advice is your student has to have some clarity about how they talk about themselves. They need to understand their skills. They need to be able to ask good questions and answer questions, because I don't care how casual the coffee chat is with your neighbor who's an executive at some bank. It's not casual. And by the way, better not dress casual either, even if you think it's just like showing up in sweatpants. That every interaction, they're evaluating and assessing. So when they are ready, if they don't want to practice with you, have them practice with an aunt and uncle, have them look at themselves on video, but they should be practicing interview questions. Really the top 3 questions of tell me about yourself, what do you know about us, and why should we hire you? And they need to know that, and they need to research the company. So you just have to have a read on where is your kid in that process? And are they ready to be put in front of someone who can actually make a decision about them? So make your connections, but make sure your kids are ready. Okay. So I hope that helps. All right. So let me come back. I'll come back and answer more questions as well. Let me make sure we kind of cover the next tips. I want to keep an eye on the time, yet we'll have plenty of time. Okay. All right. So tip number 6, and we talked about this a little bit about being persistent. And I purposely put this picture of me sitting with the anchors at NBC News because it doesn't apply just for life. It's as you progress in your life. And I said this before, one of the job search can be really hard, and it can be depressing because there's a lot of rejection and ghosting and no feedback and slow, and it's painful and people don't get back quickly. Like all of those things can feel very heavy. And very often a student will say to me, well, I had an interview, and I'll say, great. Did you send a thank you note? They'll say, well, I did, but I kind of sent it 2 weeks after. And I said, okay, not ideal, but okay, you sent it. And have you followed up? No, I didn't follow up because I don't want to bother them. They said they'd get back to me, but I don't really want to, feel like I'm a pest. And there's this general fear about being bothersome. And I'll share with you that not always do the most qualified people get the job. Sometimes it's the people that are the most persistent. So our guidance is this: if you have an informational interview, a networking interview, an actual interview, you send a thank you within 24 hours. You thank them for the time, you reshare some of the skills and value that you had and what you found interesting about the company, and that you look forward to next steps. Like you're giving them a hint that you want to continue the conversation. And then you follow up via email every 7 days until you get an answer, affirmative or negative. Now, the every 7 days email is not, do I have a job? Do I have a job? The 7-day email is, I just listened to this podcast and I thought of you and I would love your insight on it. Or I was reading about this in the news and I was wondering how this is impacting your business, and I look forward to talking about it more. Or one of my favorite phrases, when you've maybe sent in 1, 2, 3 emails, and you start the email with, please pardon my persistence. Please pardon my persistence. It's professional. It shows that you're not going anywhere. And I am telling you, I've used this in my own professional life so many times, and it usually gets an answer of like, oh, I'm so sorry, I've been meaning to get back to you. It just lets people know that you're there. And as I said earlier, one email, one call, one message is not going to move the needle. Being persistent, I think, as even Gary shared before, that a daughter went through multiple rounds of interviews. You have to be in front of people. And I'll say for myself too, I don't have a PR team. I don't have a publicist. I knew that I had a message that I wanted to share with the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, with NBC News. And I followed up. I would find a writer or a journalist saying, I really enjoyed your story about this. I think I could add some, another angle on based on what's happening in the market. And I would pitch myself to over many, many people while running this business because I knew we had to get the message out. And it does pay off. It does happen. And it wasn't because someone did it for me. I had to do it myself and just keep at it and one person connect to another. So it doesn't matter just getting the job, it helps in life. So just that ability to have some grit and strength, got to just keep at it and not let a non-response. It's just business. And I think sometimes there's this feeling a lot of students take it very personally. It's not personal. They're just busy. Got to keep persisting. Okay. Tip number 7, the resume. So many students, grads say to us, well, I just need to find all the right keywords and let me just fix my resume. Or once I have a great resume, then I know I'll get a job. Or once the resume looks like this, I'll have a job. Or maybe I need 4 resumes for each different type of job. So here's our philosophy about the resume. You need a resume. You do. But it's just a piece of the puzzle. There's no way you are going to send in your resume, go from resume submitted to sitting at the desk at the company you want. There's a lot of things that need to happen in the middle. And it's a key piece of the puzzle, but it's not the piece that you think it is. It's not going to be that piece that's going to get you hired. And our guidance on resume is a couple things, and there's a freebie that we offer. I know Haley's going to link that. A couple key points about the resume. I'll go back to what I said before. People don't listen and they don't read. And I guarantee you when they look at a resume, they're barely scanning it. I think the amount of time is like 7 seconds. So you want to make sure that you have metrics showing what you accomplished or what you contributed to. They tend to look at numbers real quickly. What percent? What revenue? How many people? What did you potentially impact? And I know, again, it's intimidating as a student or grad saying, well, what did I do? Well, maybe you recruited 5 new members to the group that you're a part of. Maybe you were able to scan through, 7 new databases that are very complex to help you complete a project. Something that gives the scale and the magnitude of what you're capable of doing. And the other thing about the resume is making sure you have very clear action verbs at the beginning of each statement. You built, you created, you led, you developed, you monitored, whatever it is. And I offer that all in that freebie, but just having it really clear and concise and easy for someone to read, showing what you accomplished, and then making sure that your LinkedIn profile exactly matches your resume. Now, LinkedIn, you can add some more stuff. That's another freebie we have about the About section, but they should mirror each other. So I know there's a lot of energy around resumes, and yes, you do need it, but it's not the thing that will result in you being hired. It's a lot of different things. Like I said, skills and networking and persistence and all the other tips that I've given so far. Okay. Okay. Tip number 8, and I alluded to this earlier. I think I said this, but if I'm repeating, when I started this business in 2015, 10 years ago, I saw young adults who were frustrated. They were not sure about how to get the job. But since the pandemic, our kids are not the same. They've missed these major chunks of their life where they have not had chance to fail, chance to socialize, chance to practice taking risks, practice doing things that are part of how you build, the brain and you evolve as an individual. And we're just seeing many more kids who are troubled. It doesn't matter what your GPA is. It doesn't matter what your school is. The kids have really struggled. And I will just reinforce before you say, my kid's not motivated, they're procrastinating, or they're lazy, or they don't listen to me, just check in with them and make sure they're okay. And if you are a student yourself and you are feeling this way, please make sure you tell someone, tell your parent, tell anyone that you trust, and seek out help. Haley's going to put in the comments, there's a link to a number of resources, crisis hotlines, mental health hotlines. It's serious. The job search doesn't matter if you are not mentally okay. And sometimes there can be this overlap because, as I said earlier, the job search can feel depressing. And sometimes it's hard to determine, are you in a depression or are you just set back from the natural setbacks in a job search when you don't hear back? So this is really, really important. I'm not a therapist. I'm a mom, I'm a business expert, but I see a lot of kids who are struggling. And please make sure if you're a kid or a student, grad, seek help if you feel you need it. And if you're a parent, make sure you're just checking in with your kid and making sure they're getting the support they need. Okay. Okay. Getting there. Tip number 9. I have had a lot of students say to me, I think I just need to come up with a way to apply to more jobs. I am sure that it's just a numbers game. So maybe I should apply to 100. No, maybe 500. I once did a TikTok live and I had a student pop in and said he applied to 5,000 jobs. I mean, I don't even know how that's possible, or you're using some kind of automated software. And it's not a good use of time. I know it feels like you're accomplishing something, like you check the box when you submit the application, but it's not a great use of time because for all the reasons that we've talked about so far, that it very rarely returns with an interview or a real job. Sometimes there's a lot of scam jobs. It very rarely returns with even the job that you want or that matches up with your skills, especially if you're just like spraying and praying all over the place. You really want quality over quantity. And I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. I want you to measure the number of conversations that you have with people and not the metric of how many jobs you applied to. Because those conversations one person will connect you to another, and that will yield you much greater results than, whatever number you can think of in terms of applying. The other piece is that when you have clarity about your skills, so let's just say you know that you're really analytical, you're great at research, maybe you're great at like Excel and coding, maybe you want to go into data analytics. Well, maybe you should start focusing on companies that need that skill. Maybe you talk to alumni who went to your school who might be in those types of roles. You want to focus on where can my skills best be suited? And I might not always see the job on the job board. You get to pick, you get to choose. So when you start finding yourself going down that hole of like, oh, I'm just going to apply to more, stop. And I'm going to tell parents too, I know sometimes you're not sure. It's not a numbers game. Don't, I'd really challenge everyone to not say, well, just do 10 more, just do 10 more. I would ask you to say, add 10 more people to your networking list. Reach out to 10 more people on LinkedIn with a connection note expressing interest and asking to connect, and then asking for a 10 or 15-minute conversation to speak. That's where I want you to measure those types of interactions. And you will start to see that will start to yield better results. Okay. So here we are, tip number 10. And as I said, I think I was torn between 1 and 10 where to go with it. There's a general feeling when a student goes to college that the university will take it from here. Right? Whether as a parent that we believe that the school promised that they're going to do these things, either because of the name, the major, the quality of the education. And students also feel like, hey, I made it. I made it here. I know people that have great results. The truth is that you need to start working on it starting as a freshman and every year of school. But hey, by the way, if you're listening right now and you graduated last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, you're not too late either. And if you're a parent of a child anywhere, you're not too late. But there needs to be a plan, which is why I built this business to really solve this problem and create a plan and help our students create a really simple, structured, step-by-step approach that enables them to really do 2 things. One is to help them get clarity on their skills. to understand how they can articulate those and add value. And then two, understand who are they going to bring those skills to in a really focused way. So when someone says to them, tell me about yourself, they know exactly what they're going to say, and they're targeting the right companies and the right people that need those skills and really help differentiate them to be the ones to get hired. So I am so grateful and honored that we have been able to help over 1,000 students be successful in landing a job. On average, our students, over 80%, are getting the job they want within 3 to 5 months of working with us. But I also want to share that there's work that goes into it. It's a class. It's like another job. No grades. They just have to want it because we're here for them. And I also want to take a moment that I don't do this alone. I have a team, a phenomenal team that has enabled to make this happen. I want to just, I don't know if everybody's listening, they will. A team of advisors and runs our operations, that runs our discovery calls. Rachel Scherzer, Lauren Aaron, Remy Mendez, Robin Kudish, Tim Barton. And I have a whole list of vendors and partners who manage our operations and Google Ads and make everything happen. And I am so eternally grateful. And they are the ones who are helping to make this happen for all of you. So with that, those are our strategies. I wanted to share a few more things, and then I'm going to get to the rest of the questions that we have here. Let's see. So if you want to screenshot this, just so you know, this is coming. It will be in a blog. You'll be on my list. I will share that. I'm also going to be sharing over the next 10 days. I will have a video for each of these bullets, these tips. They will be on all my social channels. So make sure to follow me on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. It's all going to be all over there. So just I made sure it's out there as well. I want to offer two little bonus things at the bottom. I kind of said this before, but a no is not always a no. You have to be persistent and follow up. Even if you get rejected, very often you can get another offer if you show that you want to learn why you rejected in the first place. And the other thing I want to reinforce, and I know Rachel's listening because she says this all the time to the students, the first job is not the forever job. And students so often self-sabotage and say, well, I don't want to apply, or I don't know if I want that. First of all, they didn't offer you the job yet. And secondly, maybe you just need to learn about it. Give it a shot. Don't feel that it's forever. It's not forever. But make sure that you kind of don't always sabotage what's happening in your job search. And I have a gift for everyone. And I'm so grateful to this community and the parents and the students and my team who makes this happen. So what I am offering is that for the next 10 days, I am offering my book for $10 for 10 days. Normally it's $20 or $30. It's $10 for 10 days. I want to get this resource into as many hands as I possibly can because I really want to give a tool to families to help you understand all the challenges from a parent perspective, what your kids are thinking, what employers are thinking. And then I'm providing my step-by-step approach. So even though it says for parents, it's for kids too. But this is my gift. I really want to enable as many people to have this book as a resource and try to provide it as low cost as I possibly can. So I'm doing that as my gift to all of you for the next 10 days. It's on Amazon. You can click the QR code. It'll be in the chat. If you just go to Amazon and type in Next Grade Step book, you will find it there as well. So really honored. I am an Amazon #1 bestselling author in 4 different categories. So I'm really proud of this book and the resource that we have for families in this. So please take advantage of that. And please, I'm going to start answering some questions in the Q&A. There are resources in the chat. And then just so you know, too, we have many resources that Haley has posted in the chat this evening. They're also on our website. So everything from resume to LinkedIn profile, internship tracking, interview tips. We really try to give away a lot of free materials because I want to have resources for the community as well. So again, it's on our website. If you're interested in learning more about how we support students, we are running our next group coaching. It's on April 14th. We run it over a 12-week period, and then we have another 12 weeks that we offer additional support. Our clients tell us they love group coaching because they don't feel so alone or so isolated. We run them with 5 or 6 students in each group. If you're interested, schedule a complimentary discovery call. If you want to learn about our private coaching, you can schedule that as well. But I just want to make sure we put that out there. We are building the group. We already have a number of spots filled, but if you're interested in learning more, connect with us. We'd be happy to share that with you. All right. And then again, any information you want to learn about us is at this QR code, and we welcome the opportunity to connect further. All right. So let me stop sharing for a moment. And you can, hey, I don't know, let's see, just might kind of put it in speaker view. Hold on. Nope, that wasn't what I want to do. I don't know, Rachel, why it kind of shows up on the screen. I'll put it in gallery, but it's okay. So let's take a look at some of the questions that we have here. All right. So how do you ask a recommender to revise a letter of recommendation as it contains some gender bias? By the way, it was written by a woman. Oof. I'd have to know some more information, I'll be honest with you. Let's go back to just how to ask for recommendation letters. And I just did a video about this recently. Before your students graduate from college, please make sure they connect with a professor that knows them well, that they participated in class, that they went to office hours. And by the way, if your students are younger in school, freshmen, sophomore, juniors, please encourage them to go to office hours and introduce themselves to professors, even at schools when there's, hundreds of kids in the class. This is really helpful, not only for a future reference letter or recommendation letter, also very helpful with grades. Professors really like to get to know their students, so please encourage them to do that. But make sure before they leave, ask them for a reference letter and what the best, maybe you don't know the specific job yet. Maybe there's not a specific job in mind that they are thinking about. It's just, can you speak to my skills? Can you speak to my abilities? Or the other best thing to do is just write a sample recommendation letter as a framework for your professor so they don't have to come up with it all themselves. It's very helpful, and very often they will follow the guideline. So I've been in this kind of club, I have these kinds of skills, I have this kind of aptitude, and then obviously offer for them to share something very nice about you. But try to get these recommendation letters before graduating, because it's just so much easier when you're at school. And by the way, you can go back, but try to get them as you can. And in terms of if you feel like there's a bias there, that's something that maybe you want to just seek out another letter. I don't know. I feel like that's a loaded question. I don't know if we have enough time to get into that. Maybe think if there's another professor that they can use as another letter if they're not comfortable with the one that was written for them. Okay. A whole bunch. I just answered a couple there about that. Oh, this is good. Okay. So you know what? It's so funny. I thought about this. So someone saw me repost this video with Chris Fowler, who's a commentator, sports commentator, and he talked about what people should say in an interview. And I reposted it. And I also almost didn't repost it because half of what he said I really believe, and half I was like, I'm not 100% sure. He made a comment about sharing something. Should you share something personal about, this is my family and this is where I'm from? And I actually don't always think you should post something so personal. I thought that like 60 to 70% of his message was good, so I shared it. But in general, when it comes to interviewing, and it's funny, we just had this in group today. This is not a doctor. It's not a therapist. And it's also not appropriate for an employer to know, do you live at home? Do you have any kind of disability? What your marital status is? Do you have children? Like, they're not supposed to ask you that. And it's actually none of their business in part of the hiring and evaluation. And in general, I do not encourage sharing personal information. I think if you're going to share why you have, persevered or overcome something, it's because of your skills. And always focus on skills first, and try not to talk about the other personal stuff because it's really not their business. So I appreciate you answering the question. Yes, there's part of his message that I didn't fully agree with, but I thought the majority of it was pretty good. I just try to find some people that have interesting messages. But thanks, Courtney, for asking that. How long after the April 14th group will we begin filling the next group? son will like to enroll, but after he graduates May 3rd. So we run groups every single month, and sometimes we run them multiple times a month. So if he can't get into the April group, we will absolutely have a May group, and depending on volume, we'll have a second April group. So not to worry, we've always had a group every single month of the calendar year, sometimes multiples depending on the time of year. So just stay in touch with us, make sure we have a discovery call with you. It's hard to get an internship as a freshman or sophomore. But let me just clarify this, that, okay, great. Thanks for letting me know the YouTube's still working. That a lot of companies want specifically a rising senior or a rising junior. But here's my advice. Still try to get an internship, but I don't want you having your sights on these big name companies. Don't feel that you're aiming for, Goldman Sachs as a freshman. It probably won't happen because they want to see a few more years in school. You probably need more classwork. But I'm a big fan of looking local. Talk to people who work for a local, a wealth management company, a local financial analyst. You want to learn skills. My bigger thing when someone is younger in school, freshman, sophomore, it's more about gaining the skills and it's less about the prestige name of the company. That will come because when you show that you've built a skill set, that you understand, how to do certain things, discounted cash flow, balance sheets, profit and loss statements, get your hands on as much as you can versus being at a big place and you're just kind of shuffling papers. So if you're seeking an internship and you're young and you're a freshman, look for local smaller businesses. They tend to have more opportunities. What is the recommendation, hi Anita, for graduates that are looking for jobs in sectors that are now experiencing layoffs or hiring freezes? I mean, I think you have to really evaluate that. Think about this, right? Certain skills are across many sectors, right? People need someone who have an HR skill. It might be in manufacturing, it could be sports, it could be digital marketing. There needs that HR function across a lot of businesses. And I think you need to really think about what are the skills that I have, what type of function am I looking for, and where are the companies that are hiring? So you might need to pivot. You might need to be more flexible in looking at industries that you weren't thinking of, but still look at opportunities within those companies that leverage those skills. But I know the job market's it's tight, right? It's challenging right now. But definitely take a look at what is out there in terms of leveraging the skills that your student has. Okay, I'm just going to kind of come back into our messages. I think I answered most of them. Let me just come back to the Q&A really quickly to see if I missed anything. Screen just froze. Sorry, we're back. I know, maybe it was an internet thing. Sorry about that. Okay, so hey, Mark, I'm going to answer one more question and then I'm going to try to wrap it up. Some job posts say that you can have a rising senior, but can a graduating senior still go for it? How about if the job asks for expected salary and it's a required field? All right, two questions there. So internships for someone who's a rising senior, and then internships post-grad. Companies, more and more we have seen, will take on interns who have graduated, but you have to really make sure you vet that and that it's an option. So before you spend all your time applying, try to identify someone who's in HR. By the way, sometimes it's also helpful to Google it, and Glassdoor will talk about people who work there and give opinions. That's also another way, but you can put it into like the Google search bar of like, does this company take post-grad internships? If you feel that you have not had enough experience in school with an internship, absolutely do a post-grad internship if you can afford it, if you can manage it. I think it's a great way. It's also, to me, it's almost like a long interview for both sides, whether you like it and they get to see whether they like you without having to overly commit. But you have to seek that out and understand whether that's an option. If you feel like the application is not hard, you can make a connection with someone, then go for it. There's no harm in doing that. When a job asks, so the question about salary, this is another one we get a lot. So what do you do when they ask for expected salary and it's a required field? I really try to avoid filling that out. And if you can put text or words, the words that we tell our client to put in is commensurate with industry standards. So try not to put a number in. Try to just put the words commensurate with industry standards. And If they absolutely need a number and you cannot move forward in the application without putting a number, go to salary.com. Again, I don't work for them. It's just another good resource. Go to salary.com, put in the job description, put in the location, so where it is in the country. It will give you an average of what is typically paid for that job based on the geography. And maybe you can put in a range or somewhere in the middle if that's really, if they really force it. I don't like to put it in either. I know it's really frustrating, but that's another really good resource if you have to put a number in there. I like it. Salary.com is, by the way, it's great for negotiating. It's great just to get a sense of what you, what's the current out there. Okay. So thank you so much for hanging in. I know we dropped out and everyone came back in. I really appreciate everyone's time and being a part of this and celebrating with us. I am so grateful to all of you. And I just want to give a special, again, thanks to my team, also special thanks to my own family, my husband, my two boys. I have a lot of support and I couldn't do this without you. So thank you to everybody. And we can't wait for the next 10 years to be supporting everyone. This will be recorded. If you have any questions, please reach out to us, nextgreatstep.com. Thank you for joining. Haley, thanks for all your support.